Tonight, pay out now. Women hit by changes to the state pension age urge the Chancellor to change the rules ahead of a Budget Day demonstration.
We're not unreasonable people. We can look at staged payments. There's all sorts of ways that it could be done, but action is required now.
Also making the headlines, jailed for at least 37 years. This 20-year-old killer who bludgeoned an army veteran to death is jailed for life. And plunged into darkness while the lights are going out on Edinburgh Castle. I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Pay out now. We can't wait any longer. That's a plea from women hit by changes to the state's pension age ahead of a Budget Day demonstration. In 1 week's time, WASPy women are heading to Westminster.
They're calling on the Chancellor to prioritise a proper plan to compensate those whose retirement plans were thrown into chaos. And while the Pensions Minister says they need more time to consider their approach, campaigners believe fair and fast compensation is long overdue. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
They're taking inspiration from Mary Barber, a Glasgow woman whose fighting spirit during the 1915 rent strikes showed what grassroots campaigning can achieve. In March, a long-awaited Ombudsman report urged the UK government to do the right thing for the WASPy women. It set out clear recommendations on the need for a compensation scheme for the 1950s generation who were not adequately informed of the state pension age changes.
We fought a very hard battle to get that decision, and the recommendations are all there in black and white, and nothing. The statistics are terrifying, the number of WASPy women that will have died in these intervening 7 months.
Sadly, I'm at the funeral for one tomorrow. A girl I worked with for years in the NHS, and she's the same age as me, 67, and I think she got about 8 months of her pension before she passed away.
The Ombudsman's report was left in the in-tray of the new Chancellor. It recommended payouts of up to £3,000 per person, a fraction of what the WASPy women called for. Ahead of Rachel Reeves' first budget, campaigners are well aware public money is tight, but they believe a proper plan for compensation must be prioritised.
Compensate now. We can't wait any longer. And I think it's time that they came up with a solution. We just want that to happen as soon as possible.
One of our fears is that they look to means test it the same way they have with the winter fuel allowance. And the sad thing is, after waiting 6 years in many cases to finally get the new state pension, it lifts them by £2 over the threshold for pension credits.
A lot of people are in that situation.
Yes.
Does it mean difficult decisions?
I haven't put my heating on yet. I think I put it on once for a couple of hours when it's really quite stormy and cold. But you think twice about putting it on. We shouldn't have that worry at this time of our life because we've paid in for everything.
The Pensions Minister, who met recently with campaigners, was asked for an update earlier this month.
The Ombudsman's report is a serious report which took 6 years to complete, and it deserves serious consideration, and we are carefully reviewing the details of this very complex report.
Today, the Department of Work and Pensions repeated the same statement, adding it will continue to listen respectfully to the women involved.
Keir Hardie will be burling in his grave if he kens what Keir Starmer's doing from the point of view of Labour government. Am I wrong? Have they not got exactly the same civil servants who know this issue backside foremost and inside out?
From Aberdeen to Ayr, women from across Scotland are planning to head to Westminster next week to join a national demonstration. They say their voices can no longer be ignored. Sharon Frew, STV News, Glasgow.
A 20-year-old who bludgeoned an army veteran to death with a hammer in October last year has been sentenced to a minimum of 37 years in prison. Jack Crawley lured 56-year-old Paul Taylor from Annan in Dumfriesshire over the border to a secluded spot near Carlisle under the guise of a sexual encounter.
Crawley was also found guilty of attempting to murder another man in similar circumstances earlier this year. The judge at Carlisle Crown Court described Crawley as highly dangerous and callous. Lewis Mickey reports.
These are some of the last moments of Army veteran Paul Taylor's life, leaving his job as a catering manager at the Cumberland Infirmary in October last year. He spent the evening with his family in Annan before crossing the border towards Carlisle to meet 20-year-old Jack Crawley for a planned sexual encounter. Mr. Taylor never returned home and was reported missing by his wife, leading to the arrest of Crawley in February.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
In May, he led police to Taylor's remains in this woodland near Carlisle, buried in a shallow grave. He denied murder, but admitted to manslaughter.
Much of a lot of what Jack Crawley said in trial was pure fantasy, in my opinion. The fact he went to such lengths to go up to Scotland, to a number of different places before ending up in York, where he went on to attempt to murder the second victim, just shows the lengths he went to, and also how difficult it was for ourselves as the police to catch him.
A trial at Carlisle Crown Court heard Crawley had hit Taylor over the head with a hammer at least 10 times before attempting to burn his body. On Monday, the jury in the trial found Crawley guilty of the murder and of attempting to murder another man in York in January of this year, once again using a hammer. Today, Crawley was sentenced to life in prison.
Your offending has caused unimaginable grief to the family and friends of Paul Taylor, who have listened during this trial in dignified silence to the cruel manner in which you first murdered Mr. Taylor and then destroyed and concealed his body.
Mr. Justice Goose said Crawley would spend a minimum of 37 years behind bars. Mr. Taylor's widow, Maria, said our lives and world are completely torn apart. We had plans to grow old together. This has all been taken away from us. Lewis Mickey, STV News.
A communications director at NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde has told an inquiry why she referred to a war with parents of patients who developed a hospital-acquired infection. Sandra Bastillo has since apologised for saying a concerned parent may have won the battle but won't win the war after raising concerns.
She was giving evidence to the Scottish Hospital's inquiry. It was ordered after deaths at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital from infections linked to pigeon droppings and the water supply. Here's our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
Molly Cuddihy was 15 when she developed a rare form of cancer. She was treated at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, but developed a potentially fatal infection. After her father raised concerns about her treatment publicly, the Health Board's Director of Communications told staff he may have won the battle, but won't win the war. Today, Sandra Bastillo told the hospital's inquiry she felt the board was being unfairly targeted at that time.
It was described as a crime scene, that we were murderers. It was highly emotive language that was being used. Unfairly, obviously, we felt. We also felt we were not having the opportunity to be able to speak freely and give across the organisation's point.
She said there were leaked documents referring to patients which they could not respond to.
We did feel that we were being unfairly treated, having been trying to do our best over a number of years to address these very, very complex and difficult issues. And so it was a comment that was made in a private meeting with a small group of my team, which I've obviously since apologised for.
Earlier, the inquiry heard from the daughter of Gail Armstrong, who died in January 2019. She had been diagnosed with a fungal infection, Cryptococcus, while being treated for cancer at the hospital the previous autumn. Sandy Armstrong said her mother's rapid decline had a massive effect on her length of life.
She became confused. She was speaking almost in a foreign language sometimes. She couldn't have conversations with people a lot of the time. She lost her mobility. She really suffered terribly, and we didn't get a proper chance to say goodbye to her.
The inquiry before Lord Hardy will continue tomorrow. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
The Scot, who founded the world's first municipal fire service and pioneered modern firefighting, has been honoured at a commemorative service. The event in Edinburgh marked 200 years of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service.
The great-great-great-granddaughter of James Braidwood, who was known as the Master of the Engines, said she's proud of the work he did to modernise the service. Vanessa Kennedy reports.
The way fires are dealt with now is a far cry from how things used to be. Before Edinburgh-born James Braidwood, known now as the Master of the Engines, set up the first municipal fire service, many people had to use their own bucket to attempt to put out flames, and only those who could afford it paid insurance companies to extinguish fires. James Braidwood helped create Scotland's first ever fire appliance that was pulled by firefighters. Now, 200 years on, his great-great-great-granddaughter paid tribute to him at a service in the city where history was made.
If you had insurance, which most people didn't, you would have the name of the company on a plaque outside your house. And if you were with one company and somebody from another company showed up, they would go away. If it wasn't the right company, they wouldn't put the fire out. So, it was very chaotic and very unfair and just didn't work. And as Edinburgh got bigger, obviously it became more and more dangerous, more lives were lost. I think he'd be pleased that things have continued to grow and the way that they have grown.
The fire service James Braidwood created became world-renowned. He was responsible for the introduction of PPE for Edinburgh firefighters that's become so vital today and used by firefighters battling small and large-scale fires. Today, Princess Anne was amongst those attending this commemorative event, while firefighters reflected on how far the service has come.
It's right and proper that we properly remember James Braidwood and the firefighters back 200 years ago. But I think for me the abiding thing that I'll take away is 200 years of firefighters, firefighting and people putting their own lives at risk for the safety of their communities, and the spirit of those early firefighters is still within the organisation and our firefighters.
2 centuries on, these firefighters are operating in an increasingly challenging environment. The technology they use may have changed dramatically, but the ethos of pushing the limits to save lives remains steadfast. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
A man who died in Hamilton on Monday has been named as 36-year-old William Copeland. Mr. Copeland died in the Burnbank Centre area of the town. A 59-year-old was also found seriously injured. 56-year-old William Lewis appeared at Hamilton Sheriff Court today, charged with murder and attempted murder. He made no plea and was remanded in custody. A man has been charged following a crash in Glasgow city centre earlier this month. The collision on Union Street on the 5th of October involved a taxi and 4 pedestrians. 3 women, a 60-year-old and 2 aged 61, were taken to hospital for treatment. The 62-year-old taxi driver has been charged in connection with road traffic offences. Elsewhere, a 26-year-old has appeared in court, charged in connection with the death of a man outside his home in Kilwinning. 44-year-old John Taylor was found with serious injuries on Pollock Crescent on Friday afternoon. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Kai O'Connor made no plea at Kilmarnock Sheriff Court today. The Health Secretary says he understands the need for Fort William's Belford Hospital to be replaced, but wouldn't be drawn on how long that might take. Neil Gray met with campaigners who've been calling for the hospital to be renewed since the 1990s. There was disappointment and anger in January when it emerged plans were being put on hold. Oliver Wright has more.
The Belford Hospital in Fort William is considered a lifeline to those who live here. But the building hasn't been fit for purpose for years. The case for replacing it was first agreed over 3 decades ago. Work was supposed to start this year, but funding was pulled. Today, the Health Secretary met with campaigners.
Today I don't think we were hearing anything new, nothing new from the last meeting, but he has confirmed that he has seen the building is not fit for purpose, and that the staff are doing a wonderful job under very difficult circumstances.
The Belford sits 2 hours from Inverness and 2 hours from Glasgow, and in the outdoor capital, it's put under huge pressure.
These people are coming, and they're encouraged to get involved in adrenaline-rich sports here because it's the outdoor capital of the UK, but also they will have all the usual medical and surgical problems and will present to the A&E department with that.
NHS Highland has other projects that are also in need of funding, but it says it's sure that this is a priority.
We know that this is a project that's needed doing for many, many years, and the reason we took it to initial agreement and actually had it at that stage was because it's a significant priority for us.
In January, plans were put on hold to replace the hospital when capital funding was withdrawn. The Scottish Government says cuts were the result of UK government decisions. And today, the Health Secretary admitted the project was needed, but that no decisions could be made until the UK budget next week.
I can't give a commitment around timescales at this stage. We've got a lot of work to do to understand what is going to be on the face of the UK government's budget and then how that informs our own budget considerations.
It was hoped the hospital would be replaced by 2028, but with ground still not broken and no funding confirmed yet, a date for a new building remains unclear. Oliver Wright, STV News.
Ronnie has the sport and it's back to Champions League action for Celtic tonight.
It is indeed, John.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Good evening. Celtic are currently in action in their Champions League clash with Atalanta. We've played around half an hour or so in Italy and the scoreline reads Atalanta 0, Celtic 0. Philippe Clement insists Rangers cannot continue to sack managers if they want stability and long-term success at the club. The defeat to Kilmarnock on Sunday has led to a fans' backlash against the Belgian, with many questioning his future. But Clement says the team are 200% on the right track. He's a man under pressure. Philippe Clement back on the training ground today ahead of Rangers' Europa League clash with Steaua Bucharest. The spotlight has been firmly fixed on the Belgian after Rangers' defeat to Killie on Sunday, with fans' anger spilling over at full time. Some want him gone, but he says that's not the answer.
If you change ideas every 3 months, 6 months or every year, of course there's no consistency in the club. So you need to follow a track, you need to follow one process that everybody keeps on going in the same direction. So that's crucial. Otherwise, you always have ups and downs.
And you're confident you are still on that trajectory?
For sure, 200%.
Despite claiming they are on the right track, Rangers still find themselves 6 points behind Celtic and Aberdeen at the top of the table. Clement insists his supporters can play their part in turning the team's fortunes around.
The more they stick behind the team, the more they are positive, the more they are supporting, the more they give the team energy, the faster it will go also. But we understand also from our side that the fans need to see also things on the pitch. So we were not happy with the performance in that way against Kilmarnock. All of us were not happy about that.
Yanis Hadji and Danilo aren't in Rangers' European squad, so will miss out tomorrow, with defender Ridvan Yilmaz still out through injury. Neil Critchley says leading Hearts into the Europa Conference League tomorrow night was one of the biggest reasons he was desperate to land the job. The Tynecastle club will look to make it 2 wins from 2 in Europe, and Critchley believes his men can take another step forward after their poor start to the season. Jamie Bothwick has this.
His whirlwind start continues. Neil Critchley's been in charge at Hearts for just 8 days and now aims to back up a league victory with one in Europe. He previously led Liverpool's youth sides into continental competition, but understands tomorrow night will be altogether different.
It's not new to me, but yeah, managing Thursday night against a team like Ammonia, then it's a definite, one of the definite reasons why I came to this football club without a shadow of a doubt.
It was the perfect start for the former Blackpool boss with a 4-0 home win on Saturday. Omonia Nicosia head to Edinburgh with good European pedigree and will represent a stern test for a Hearts side still rebuilding from a winless run that shattered confidence and cost Stephen Naismith his job.
I think sometimes it can be overcomplicated in terms of, and then you're thinking too much that we need to do this or that. So especially the weekend, I feel like we just simplified everything. We had a good structure and let our top players do what they're good at.
We've only lost 1 in 4 now. I think that's given a group a boost in morale, a lift, and we want that to continue. We had another one here Saturday, and Thursday night under the lights here with our supporters behind us, we aim to take another step forward.
Hearts made the ideal start to life under Neil Critchley, and with a huge Edinburgh derby looming at the end of the week, they're desperate to continue that momentum as their Europa Conference League campaign gets back underway. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
Duncan Ferguson has become the first casualty after Inverness were plunged into administration after leaving his position as manager. The former Rangers forward was appointed last season and spent just over a year at the helm of the Highland club. He had been working for free in recent weeks to try and help the club financially.
I think we were expecting it, weren't we? At the end of the day, you go into administration, I'm the manager, so I'd be the first one to be looking at. That was the case. I got taken about 10 minutes ago, and just a couple of minutes of a meeting just to say, unfortunately, the situation in administration and we'll have to let you go. It was as quick as that, really. I had no problems at all. I mean, we were expecting it.
Finally, rugby, and Gregor Townsend says Sione Tuipulotu is the right man to lead Scotland after appointing the Glasgow centre as the new national team captain ahead of the autumn tests. Tuipulotu will lead Scotland as they welcome Fiji, South Africa, Portugal and Australia to Murrayfield next month. He replaces Finn Russell and Rory Darge, who were co-captains for the Six Nations earlier this year.
We feel he's been a key leader for us now for the last couple of seasons. He thrives in that leadership role. We've seen that with Glasgow, but also in the summer tour. And we felt this was the right time to name one captain. Last year we wanted to grow our depth of leaders with co-captains, but we feel he's the right man right now for the team.
37 minutes played in Bergamo, still Atalanta 0, Celtic 0. You can get all the reaction to that match on our website later on. Bye for now.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Well, time for a look at the weather now with Sean.
Light winds rolling in from the west. We'll be joined by some very welcomed ice creams. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Well, the weather's not been too bad for most of us today. A lot of dry weather, cloud breaking at times, a little bit of brightness around. A few showers through this evening, very isolated, mind you. For most of us, it remains dry, but it will turn increasingly windy around the west coast and the Hebrides. That'll be a feature of tomorrow's weather. A mild one tonight, though, 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, still staying around the low to mid-50s in Fahrenheit, so a mild night. So tomorrow we've got a southerly airflow, the weather front sitting out west. It's probably going to just stay about 20 to 30 miles west of Tiree through much of the day, but it will get close enough to us here later on in the afternoon to give us some shout outbreaks of rain, also across Mull, parts of the Highlands, a little bit of light and patchy rain by the end of the day. But for most of us, it's dry, it's bright through the afternoon, temperatures 12 to 14 degrees Celsius, but as I say, it will be quite windy around the west coast and across the islands. Also particularly windy across the Inner Hebrides on Friday, the risk of gales for a time, and showers, longer spells of rain, the weather really going downhill just in time for the weekend. Saturday we've got a spell of rain to go through, some of it will be on the heavy side. The best of the drier weather, unfortunately, is going to fall through Saturday night, because on Sunday we see another band of rain coming through, and again some of that will be heavy, and I think that's going to last through much of Sunday. So the weather certainly much more changeable again for the weekend, some heavy spells of rain at times, a little bit brighter into next week and fresher. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Now, Edinburgh Castle should have fallen into darkness tonight ahead of essential work on the historic site, but it looks like the lights are still on.
Yes, essential works in the building were planned to help to protect it for the future. Laura Piper joins us now from high above the city. Laura, so Historic Environment Scotland warned us all to expect a change in the capital skyline tonight. What's going on?
Well, it seems there was a slight delay, but it has just gone off here over my shoulder. We're now being just plunged into darkness. As you can maybe just see a few slight glows there, but pretty much that is the castle now off for tonight. Now, it's rare for the power to be shut off like this, but it is necessary. This building is over 900 years old. It survived bombardments, catapults, cannonballs, but now the climate crisis is one of its biggest threats. Now, tonight, some vital work is being undertaken by a team here, particularly on some of the electric works, the metal work. Some of that has suffered some corrosion due to the extreme severe weather that we have due to global warming. Now, it does mean for visitors here this evening, though, that this might not be quite the view they were expecting.
Pretty devastating. We were going to camp out here, weren't we?
Yeah.
Get the chairs ready, but it just wasn't
No, it's not for it today.
It's okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Once you're here all the way from Pakistan just to visit the heritage and historical sites, you can climb 1,000 stairs.
Now, I haven't really seen it light up, so I'm not sure how it looks like. So I would really be delighted to see it light up though, because if it was, yeah, it would be awesome.
I'm not that sad. I could come back tomorrow.
Well, this is one of many historic sites across Scotland which has suffered from the impacts of climate change and is likely to again in the future. But Historic Scotland are making efforts to remedy this, like the work being carried out here tonight. But the good news is that the repairs here will be carried out through the evening and the castle will reopen once more tomorrow, lighting up the skyline once again.
Oh, great news. Thank you very much for that, Laura.
That's all from us here tonight. Rona will have Scotland tonight at 10:40.
Yes, but from all of us here, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye for now.
Good night.